purpose of my speech is to inform you about sensory processing disorder. When Jason was 1 year old, he tried to eat a light bulb. At 18 months, he'd take his socks and shoes off, spread his Legos out, and march all over them. Later on, if he was overwhelmed, he would climb into the dryer or a small cupboard. He couldn't go to the store without having an enormous fit. And when he gave hugs, they were violent, not just, they were crazy violent. He has sensory processing disorder. First, I'm going to talk about what sensory processing disorder is. Then, I'll talk about how it presents, and then a few of the different treatments. Sensory processing disorder is just that. The brain doesn't process information from the senses right. It is a neurological disorder. They're not sure what causes it. It gets misdiagnosed as ADHD and oppositional defiance disorder a lot. It presents in children as hyposensitive to touch. They may frequently hurt other kids when playing with them. They may abuse themselves or others. They're called sensory seekers. They may have poor tactile perception, that's touch. They might have trouble with buttons and zippers and scissors. They might stick everything in their mouth after after they're 2 years old. They might have poor vestibular dysfunction, hypersensitive, maybe clingy. Vestibular dysfunction is movement. They might be terrified of heights, of falling, being upside down, and they may be very clumsy. The hyposensitive, they're constantly moving, they can't sit still. They're thrill seekers. They run and jump instead of walking, and they're constantly moving or spinning excessively, and they don't get dizzy. They could have poor muscle tone, be floppy, have a limp, floppy body. They may slump. They may lay their head on arms just like they're exhausted. They have difficulty turning doorknobs, catching themselves if they fall. They may not have crawled as a baby. And by age 4 or 5, they may have no preference as to right or left. It may appear as if they're ambidextrous, but they're really not. They may have an auditory dysfunction. They may be hypersensitive, distracted by sounds. Others don't notice, like the hum of light bulbs. It may just be intolerable for them. They may be fearful of the sound of the vacuum cleaner or the toilet flushing or a hairdryer. And they're bothered by background noise, like a lawn mowing, construction, and they're always asking people to be quiet. The kids that are hyposensitive, they often don't respond to their name. They didn't babble as an infant. They talk loudly. They loudly talk to themselves when they talk themselves through a task. And they say what a lot. Oral input dysfunction. The hypersensitive kids are extremely picky eaters. They have extreme food preferences. They may only eat soft food. They might gag on textured food. They may eat only hot or only cold food. The hyposensitive kids, the kids that aren't that sensitive, they may lick or taste or chew objects that aren't edible. They overdo condiments or seasonings and acts like all foods taste the same. Hypersensitive to smells, those kids tell people how bad or funny they smell. They're bothered by perfume or household aromas, and they dislike someone or some place just because of the way it smells. Hyposensitive, they have difficult discriminating unpleasant odors. They might eat or drink poisonous fluids or substances because they can't smell the noxious fumes. And they use smell to interact with objects. And visual input dysfunction. Bright light, sensitive, it may cause a headache, easily distracted by movement, decorations, difficulty in bright, colorful rooms. and they enjoy playing in the dark. Hyposensitive kids, they have difficulty telling the difference between similar letters like P and Q and B and D. They complain about seeing double, and they often lose space when copying from the board. They fatigue over schoolwork. The social aspects, they have difficulty getting along with peers. They may be abusive to themselves or others. They prefer playing with objects or by themselves instead of with others. The emotional, they're often impulsive, easily frustrated. They may tantrum if a change in routine. They function best in small groups, and they have a quick mood change, 0 to tantrum in 5 seconds or less. Their internal regulation is the dangerous part, because they get too hot or too cold very quickly, and they can't regulate their own body temperature. They could have frequent diarrhea or constipation, and they're always or never thirsty. They oscillate between the two. And with the sensory processing disorder kids, it's extreme. It can be one symptom or all of them, or it can be a cluster of them, and they can fluctuate. And kids with SPD often have low self-esteem from being teased by other children or being reprimanded by adults constantly. Now we'll talk about the treatment. The treatment for SPD is occupational therapy. First, what is it? It's a therapeutic use of work or self-care and play activities that define occupation as that which chiefly engages one's time. OT is carefully structured combination of play, exercise, and other activities, such as listening therapy with headphones, children's CDs, but you can hear what's going on around, and I've got some of those somewhere. Right here, they're actually big. And then they have balancing activities, like with a stool. It usually has a knob on the bottom. Or brushing. Early brushing, arms, legs, and torso. Early intervention is crucial. The earlier the better. You can catch it. The earlier you can catch it, the more treatable it is. And the kids end up living normal lives. In conclusion, SPD has a wide range of symptoms and causes, behavioral issues. It gets misdiagnosed, and it's very treatable. And early intervention is important. The boy I mentioned earlier got early intervention. His mom got him into a school that specializes in that sort of thing. And now he's in a regular school. He can go shopping without a tantrum. And that's it.
Very nice.